Rev up your engines! My wife's car had a baby Lexus. But in all seriousness, this Lexus is a 2005 and the customer just bought it. It says it only has 75,000 miles. They can get computers to plug in to set them back. They can take the dash apart and they can change the reading. They could put a used dash in. So today I'm going to show you how to tell if a car you're looking at to buy has the real mileage on the odometer or whether it's got a lot more miles on it. Now, I drove it over here with this X on. I don't know what that's about, but as we go inside, we can see, even though it's a 2005, it says it's only got 75,000 miles on it. And yes, there are crooked people around that will set them back. So, what do? Well, of course, if you can get a Carfax or something that shows when it was inspected, how many miles it had on, look for oil change records. This case comes with a book, including a card from the Lexus dealer that it was originally sold at. And this log book has mileage, oil changes, so it all fits. Started in the beginning and made it all the way up to what it's got now. But let's say it didn't have any. Well, somebody might have messed with it and cheated with the odometer reading. So what you want to do is look at the interior. Okay. Leather's still in really good shape. And look at the steering wheel. It's very clean. The leather isn't worn out. If this was all worn and frayed, you could think, boy, it's got a lot of driving. This, being this clean, 75,000 miles, is relatively believable. When you start it up, take it for a little spin, how does it ride? Lexuses are quiet, right? So I'll let loose of the gas here. Quiet. I don't hear any roaring wheel bearings. If it had like 272,000 miles, hey, the wheel bearings would be roaring, you'd hear more noise. The steering would be sloppy in this case, very responsive. It isn't where you're turning the wheel and nothing happens. The transmission, put it into passing gear. No hesitation. Then it shifted back up. And as we make a hard turn, we don't hear a bunch of creaking suspension parts. It's still really quiet. As we sit idling, nice smooth idle. All the lights and everything work perfectly fine. Check the windows. They all work fine. And of course, we'll plug our scan tool in. This is going to give us all kinds of information. This is going to get the mileage, the ES330. While it's running through everything, hey, we'll just take a general look around. The dash is in good shape. Now you can see the little airbag thing is wallowing out a little, and that's typical from the age. That has nothing to do with mileage. It's in the sun. It's going to be a little bit warped. That's what happens to that plastic. Like I say, the steering wheel has normal wear. It's not all worn out, showing that it's really high mileage. The elbow rest isn't worn out. The middle isn't. Totally believable that's the real mileage. This is a typical Lexus. They run great. Look, everything's green. There are no codes. Look at the live data stream. Now in this case, the mileage on the screen is the same as the mileage on the odometer, so it's got to be pretty real. The airflow ratio sensors, you can see they're doing pretty good. 1.000 is perfect, pretty close to perfect. In this case, it doesn't really matter that the car is 18 years old. It's that it's only got 75,000 miles, and that's nothing on a Lexus. You can see misfire counts, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 0, the whole way across the boards. No misfires at all. It's stable at 17.5 degrees, not moving at all, until we rev it up, in which case it's going to go up. You can see it's going up like it's supposed to. Then as it goes back down, it will go back down to where it was before. It takes a while for it to equilibrate. So all the data shows me the car's running perfectly, and that is indeed the real mileage on this car. Let's pop a look under the hood. We'll give it a pop. Smooth running engine. Just realized this particular engine has one downfall. It is an ES330, so it has a rubber timing belt. Unlike just about every Toyota that's ever been made, you can see this one has been changed. And it was changed at 63,000 miles. Not too long ago, 75 now, so he doesn't have to worry about it. Now, I find that interesting because some other mechanic gave him a list of things he needed to do, including a timing belt and water pump. This baby was just changed a little time ago, so the guy was ripping them off. He doesn't need to change it. It was changed recently. Always check things out before you pay money for anything. Guys are always trying to sell you stuff. Doesn't need it. It was done like 13,000 miles ago, and they're good for usually 100,000. All the systems are green, the ABS is green, so that's going to be working okay. It doesn't overheat. There's no obvious signs of wrecks. Okay, let's see. We got a little over 2 fingers on the left front. What do we have here? Same thing, a little over 2 fingers. Car hasn't been wrecked in the front. Anything obvious anyways. In the back, again, this is 2 fingers. And we'll go to the other side. And the other side, it's 2 fingers. So, it hasn't been all squashed in. And all the seams line up. Yeah, at some point in time, somebody's hit this and they've wrecked the paint, but it didn't break anything. That's just paint. It can be resprayed. You can get that painted over. But since that's been hit or painted before anyways, let's look in the trunk for possible wreck damage. We'll look inside. Looks pretty clean here. Let's look under here. Whistle clean, no smashes. This is how they build them. That's not repair. They're built that way so they don't leak. Got a nice spare too with an actual rim, not a fake one, the same fancy rim. They used to make these cars really well. You can see, made in Japan. So let's close the hood, take it for a serious drive. It's an old car, so it's old school. It's got a 6-disc CD changer. No backup camera, but I got the stupid marking off, got in the way. Down the road we go. They handle quite well. Combination of smoothness and decent handling. Even though this one still has the original struts on it, just like my wife's, hers still has the original struts on it too. And it's a Lexus, so let's check out the anti-lock brakes. Yep. They don't lock up. No arguing that. They still work perfectly fine. Take it to our little drag strip. Nobody one way, nobody the other. That's good. But today there's somebody behind us, so we will get over to the side so we won't get in their way. And now they've passed us in a Toyota. Toyota products everywhere. Coming to our little drag strip, so nobody's behind us. And here we go. Woo, that baby still peels out. You can cruise all day long in these things. You don't get tired driving around. Looks like he got a good deal with a real 75,000 miles on the odometer. You might be surprised, but there's quite a few of these out here because there's a lot of elderly people that drive these comfortable cars. They don't put that many miles on it, and that's what he got. He got an elderly person's car who had traded it in. Strangely enough, at a Subaru dealership. Suspension's good. It doesn't pull one way or the other. Hey, I mean, this is a good car. Now, the reason he bought this, strangely enough, was he said he was looking at Camrys and Avalons, but being Toyotas, they have the image of they can last forever. They wanted a ton of money for one with really high mileage on it. And still today, some people think Lexus is a luxury car. It's going to cost a fortune to repair. Now, yes, if you have the V8 Lexuses, they can be very expensive to repair. But these 6s, they don't break down all that much. And they are not expensive to repair compared to the V8 Lexuses at all. You got to really get specific when you're talking about car repair. For example, I get a brake master cylinder for this thing for like 160 bucks. If it was a V8, it might cost 1,800 bucks for the whole modular assembly. 6s don't have all that complex crap that they put on their luxury 8s. It's got a killer sound system. There's speakers everywhere. Well, we are in Tennessee, so do you expect to have country and western playing on the speakers? That's only to be expected here. Outlaw field, outlaw music. And we get on the twisties. This thing is still fun to drive. Hey, they knew what they were doing when they made these things. Plus, they don't have the complexity of a modern one. This is a basic, naturally aspirated V6 engine with a very dependable automatic transmission. Not a CVT, not a DCT, just a plain old automatic transmission that, look, plenty of power, still shifts up and down perfectly fine. So that is that for the road test. Now, of course, normally you will have a mechanic like me check it out before you buy, not after. He had somebody else check it out that he knew, and then he found out I was in town. He brought it over here to let me check it out. But not only did he get somewhat lucky, it saved him a bunch of money, because I found out by looking closely, timing belt and the water pump have already been changed. He doesn't need to change them. The guy was going to charge him a whole bunch of money to change, so I saved him a bunch of money on that alone. It doesn't need it. It just was done about 13,000 miles ago. And people may be saying, oh, the price of used cars, blah, 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 blah. You got this thing for like $7,000 with 75,000 miles on it in today's market. Don't poo-poo the idea of finding a Lexus with low mileage. A lot of older people like these luxury cars. They don't drive that many miles. That's totally believable. My wife's Lexus, it's only got 80-something thousand miles on it. It's a 2002. That's totally believable. We bought it from elderly people. We're elderly ourselves now. We weren't that elderly when we bought it, but it's lasted so long and we don't drive all that many miles. There are good cars like this out there if you check. Now, yeah, people lie, cheat, and steal about the mileage all the time, but now you know. There are things you can check to see if it is the real mileage. Things that would be a flag. Say the suspension was all creaking, rattling, and the steering wheel was worn out, and the seats were all worn out from wear and tear. Then you'd know, hey, it's got a lot more than 75,000 miles on it, right? Well, there are a lot of these out there because they're luxury cars, and a lot of elderly people like a nice luxury car, then they get kind of afraid as they get older. Not just them, but the cars. Because after all, this is an 18-year-old car. It's an old car. But they're so well made, the ones that made in Japan, with 75,000 miles. This baby is barely broken in. It's not going to have high repair costs for quite some time. It still runs perfectly fine. So if you're really disgusted by the high price of cars these days, maybe spend some time looking around. You never know what's out there. The market can only charge so much for 18-year-old cars. They're in shape like this one is. The age is immaterial with that low mileage. It's sad but true, they don't make them like they used to. The new Lexuses are not quite as solidly built as these older ones were. Everybody's cutting corners. It's just the way that it goes these days. And as the level of technology gets higher, so do the repair bills when those things finally do break down. Everything breaks down eventually. And it would be better to have simpler technology break to fix it than really high-tech stuff, because we all know with the real high-tech stuff, a lot of times what happens when it breaks? You throw it away and get another one. Fine if you're talking about a cell phone, but if you're talking about a $60,000, $70,000 car, I wouldn't want to be throwing it away anytime soon. I'd much rather buy one of these for $6, $7 grand and drive it for years and years. So if you never want to miss another one of my new car repair videos, remember to ring that bell.